To The Point of View. This is your favorite current affairs show here on ChannelOne television. On The Point of View, we get the right guests, ask them relevant questions on issues that matter to you. We have a 2-in-1 show for you tonight because this is our main show before Independence Day on Friday. And so we are reflecting on Ghana's independence by looking at the lives of two critical, sometimes divisive figures. Dr. JB Danquah, known as the doyen of Ghanaian politics, is a man who splits opinion. I was speaking to a man who's written a freshly published biography of Dr. JB Danquah. Later on, I'll speak to Dr. Nimoy Thompson, who has a strong angle on Kwame Nkrumah's seminality in Ghana's formation. We'll be discussing that when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back. So tonight is a double-decker. We start off with the author of a new book, Echoes from the Doyen, JB Danquah, to Ghana and Africa. It's a book that today, the 4th of March, will be launched or was launched. And the author is Berima P.A.C. Otredako. This is his 5th or 6th book, so he's been writing quite a lot of things. And he's going to talk to us about why he believes Dr. JB Danquah's place in Ghana's history needs to be defended, particularly because of some of the narratives of the past few years, which he believes wants to either demonize or ostracize or exclude the doyen from his rightful place in Ghana's history. So he's my guest for the first part of the show. Berima, thank you so much for joining the program.
You're welcome, Bernard.
Amazing. So look, this book is interesting.
Sure. Let me go for the next.
Okay. So the echoes from the doyen, JB Danquah, to Ghana and Africa. Why did you write this book?
Okay, I wrote this book because I have a very strong passion for Ghana and Africa. And I believe that we can build a first-class Ghana and a first-class continent. As a result, I have a group or an organization called Awake Africa.
Okay.
Championing African Heritage.
Awake Africa.
Africa Ghana Mission.
Okay.
Championing African Heritage. So as a result, we decided to research it to fathers who have come ahead of us.
Okay.
Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, JB Danquah, and a number of them. I'm a fan of Mandela, almost all the nationalists, Nnamdi Azikiwe and co. I have discovered that they left us golden legacies that if the younger generations are to pick them up, we'll be able to build the Ghana we all want. And our inability to live in their footprint is the reason why we are suffering. So I sincerely believe that if Ghanaians should get to know JB Danquah, the true JB Danquah, and emulate his policies and the things he stood for, Ghana will become like Britain.
So you've written a number of books in the past on nationalism, on the unfinished business of independence, Africa in prophecy, and all of those. But this will be your first biography.
Yes.
In terms of on a person. So why JB Danquah? Because reading about our history, about independence, why a biography on JB Danquah?
Okay. I'm a bit prophetic.
Okay.
In 2002, the Lord led me to write this book, Princess from Eden. Okay. The book is telling people that human race began in Africa. Christians and Muslims believe that God created man in Eden. And I want to tell the world that Eden is in Africa.
Eden is in Africa.
And that prince is the black man. And
so Africa is the cradle of civilization.
Sure. And it points out that Jesus, David, Adam, all those biblical characters are blacks. And blacks have had a golden generation before. So this book explains the life journey of the black man and links the black man to the life story of Joseph. So what I want to tell people is that when you see Joseph, it's telling more about Africa. So I related Joseph's life to Kwame Nkrumah, Mandela, and a number of characters. I see. And what blacks have done, inventions and great things that blacks have done, like Thomas Mensah, the man who was able to work on the internet to speed up the internet that today we are all enjoying. So Mandela is a symbol of Joseph of our time. I see. Mandela. And what is the life journey of the African? Like you said, Africa was the cradle of civilization. We started well. We began a number of things, architecture, science, a number of discoveries on this earth began by Africans. That is how Joseph began his life. The Bible said that his father loved him, and he had a coat of many colors. It's a symbol of different talents. He was able to shine. But there came a second phase of his life whereby his glory was treated. He went to prison. So the black man started well. People looked up to him, and the second journey of the African race has been a life of prison, has been a life of slave trade. So the slave trade, the colonizations are all symptoms of the prison life that we have been in. Okay. And then there came the third phase of Joseph's life. He came out of prison to become a ruler of Egypt. In the same way, Africans are ending the second phase of the struggle, and they are going into the third phase of a glory. But how would they believe? So Mandela is that symbol. Mandela comes from a royal family. His father wanted him to be a chief, trained him to be a lawyer. He ends up fighting for his people and ends in prison. He stays in prison. That is the hopeful life his father had for him is crushed. He enters into prison. And 27 years after, he comes out to become the leader of his country. And the unique thing about Mandela is that he was able to bring the blacks and white. People thought he was going to revenge on the white because of the torture and the injustice they have merited on blacks. But Mandela said, I have forgiven them. That is what Joseph did. Okay. When Joseph...
We still haven't come to JB Danquah
Yes,
yet.
I'm coming. So when Joseph got to that place of glory, he forgave his brother. So what am I saying? There's a ministry of reconciliation that Africans are going to champion, uniting the races together in spite of the injustice, the pain that they have caused us. So then there comes this man who is also called Joseph, and went through the journey of Joseph, goes to prison, comes out of prison, helps in the emancipation of his people, and still stands for unity and forgiveness. Bernard, if you should read Dr. Danquah's letters in prison, you will see that he was full of forgiveness. In spite of what Nkrumah's government had done to him, he wrote to Nkrumah that Nkrumah's idea of African unity is splendid, and that if he should come out of prison, he was going to support Nkrumah to achieve that united Africa. He suggested to Nkrumah that the name Africa is even colonial, and just as he changed the name Gold Coast to Ghana, Nkrumah should think of a name that is unique. They should check of an original name that could be found in the Bible, and his opinion was Kush, that Africans should not even use any identity that is Western.
Because Africa was after a man Africanus,
Very
who
good.
was one of the Roman officials.
Very good. So in prison, in spite of what had happened to him, he suggested to Nkrumah that if he should come out of prison through the Institute of African Studies or the Ghana Academy of Arts, they would champion the African liberation and the United States of Africa, which Nkrumah was preaching. So, and he had even gone to buy a copy from Nkrumah, and Nkrumah had also sent a copy autographed to him. And he wrote to Nkrumah that before...
This was while he was in prison?
Yes, in prison. Before you brought your book to me as a gift, I had already bought one. You see, so he was full of forgiveness. And so I came to understand the Joseph characteristics in him.
I see. So for you, JB Danquah's life is prophetic?
Sure.
No problem. Who was he? Where was he born? Because I recall you mentioned in the book that his brother was the Ochihene.
Yes.
And that he was from the royal family.
Yes.
And that he was also quite intelligent. So just talk to me a bit about who he was and how he came to be known as the doyen of Ghana's politics.
Dr. JB Danquah's father is an Ashanti.
Okay.
A royal from Ashanti.
His father?
Yes.
Is it Jabin?
Jabin and Mampong.
Okay.
And the Ashantis had war with Jabin. The first one occurred in 1831 after the Dodowa War. Yes.
The
Katamanso War. And then they reconciled, and then the war happened again. So the other time that the war happened in the 1870s, there was a man called JB Danquah who fled. Many of the Ashantis have fled to eastern region. So when you go to New Jabin, Asokore, Koforidua, many of them were from Ashanti that came to settle there. So this man JB also migrated from Ashanti as an Ashanti royal, came, and then the Chebi chief or the paramount chief of the Ochihene, the Achimabu Akwa state, who was called Nana Amwakwata, received JB and he became his drummer, chief drummer. And he was very loyal to the king, and the king loved him and gave Boachi Danquah a royal to marry from Chebi. And they gave birth to Aaron Eugene Boachi Danquah. And then that woman died, and they gave the man another woman from Adadientem, Achima Adadientem, close to Chebi, and who was called Nkrumah. That is JB Danquah's mother. And then he gave birth to Joseph Boachi Kwame Boachi Danquah.
So that's Dr. Joseph Boachi Danquah.
Yes.
So that's JB Danquah.
That's JB.
So his mother was from
Adadientem.
And his father is this man from Dwabing and Mampong, who later went to Chebi.
Yes. So Eugene Aaron Boachi Danquah became Nana Oforiatta the first in 1912 when he became the
Oh, I see. So you have his picture in the book. So Nana Oforiatta,
yes,
is JB Danquah's brother.
Yes, paternal.
Same father.
Same father.
But JB Danquah was younger.
JB Danquah was younger.
Okay.
So
is it Nanase Oforiatta?
Nanase Oforiatta.
Wow.
He was called Boachi Danquah.
I see.
It is the chieftaincy that changed his name to Oforiatta.
I see.
So he became Oforiatta when he became a king.
So JB Danquah's brother was Ochihene?
Yes, JB Danquah's brother is Ochihene. And Oforiatta the second is JB Danquah's nephew.
Is it?
Is JB Danquah's nephew. JB Danquah was born at Bepon in Kwawu.
Okay.
And then attended school at Begro. But later he spent most of his time at the palace. The interesting thing about JB is that JB didn't attend a secondary school.
Okay.
They didn't have any A level. So he was like self-motivated to educate himself. But he used those periods to study into the Akan concept of chieftaincy.
Okay.
Because of his proximity to the palace. And he was even able to write the cases in the Akan law and other books on the laws of Akans. He wrote about 2 books at the age of 25.
Wow.
So as he studied, later his brother sponsored him to write British matriculation exams. He failed the first time, failed the second time, and wrote the paper again, and he passed to attend London School of Law, the London
UCL.
Yes.
University College of London.
London, yes.
And
that's where he studied philosophy, and then later wrote the LLB, and then got scholarship to study philosophy, and then he got his PhD in 1927.
So by 1927, when he came back to Ghana, he had his PhD. He was also a lawyer.
Yes. And then when he was in London...
By the way, 1927 is the same year that Kwame Nkrumah died.
Kwame Nkrumah died. So then that's why in the book I state that 1927 is an interesting year. That was the year Kwame Nkrumah died, and that was the year another hero was also arriving in the Gold Coast.
Of course, that was the year Gadgetberg also left.
That was the year Gadgetberg also left. So, but in UK, Danquah was in student politics. His mentor was Castle Hayford.
J.E. Castle Hayford?
Yes.
Really?
Castle Hayford. So Danquah was into Pan-Africanism. So they established the West African Students' Union in London in 1924. And their aim was a united Africa. So in 1927, when he left the Gold Coast, he realized that nobody was achieving independence. This Pan-Africanism won't take them anywhere. So a nation at home before a nation abroad. We need to get a government before we can champion Pan-Africanism. So after he left the UK, he began to focus all his energies to get independence for Ghana. So they established a group called the Gold Coast Youth Conference with a number of his schoolmates, R.S. Blay, K.A. Kosa, A.W. Kojo Thompson, and a number Nanka Bruce, and a number of these learned people who loved their country. So what was the Gold Coast Youth Conference doing? They were educating the people, unlike some of the nationalists like Nnamdi Azikiwe. The interesting thing about Ghana is that Nigerian first president started his political career in Ghana after he had attended University of Lincoln. And then he came to Ghana and worked with the Morning Post as their editor.
Owned by A.E. Okansi.
That's right.
Okansi.
Very good. So they were very radical.
They were radical?
Yes.
So JB Danquah wasn't radical?
No, JB wasn't radical.
He was more of a gradualist.
Yes, a gradualist, but his approach too wasn't that. He felt because of the chieftaincy.
His brother was a chief.
Yes, he wanted things to be in diplomacy. He didn't want that radical insult, hate, that physical aggressive note.
I see.
Yeah, but he wasn't that gradualist as people also think, because I will read some of his statement to the British for independence, then you realize that he was very radical in his statement, but in his approach of doing things, there was more of diplomacy. Yes, so the Gold Coast Youth Conference, they were equipping people. And one of the things this book does is to expose their legacies. They said that Africans, we are not bad or inferior because we are Africans. If we are, it is the environment that has contributed. And therefore, if we can make impact in the environment and change society, we can get good product or good human resources to develop Africa.
Who gave him the title, the Doyen of Ghana's politics?
The Doyen was unofficially referred to him already because he was the first person to mobilize people into politics. JB Danquah is the first person in this country to come to Bernard, Charlie, we can get independence, so let's do politics. People didn't love politics. And he said, people had so much apathy. Nobody was paying you. Nobody was paying you. And people, if you associate with the white man, you get paid.
So are you saying that what the Aborigines Rights Protection Society did was not political mobilization? Because they argued against the lands ordinance.
Very good. They were into civil activism.
Okay.
But when you talk about politics, like form a political party,
it was JB.
It is JB.
So, and the group was called the what? The Youth.
The Gold Coast Youth Conference.
So that was the antecedent of the UGCC.
That's right.
And he founded it.
Yes.
What year is this?
1927. With a number of people, not he.
So R.S. Blay.
R.S. Blay, a certain man called Bossman, K.A. Kosa. In fact, K.A. Kosa was the first leader, and JB revived it. So they used that to bring the youth together.
So who referred to him as a Doyen? Was it the Watson Commission?
Officially, the Watson Commission. But like I'm saying that he was unofficially known as the Doyen.
Because he started partisan political mobilization.
Almost, if you look at Ghana's political history, all the politicians passed through his house, including Kwame Nkrumah. He recruited Komla Gbedema into politics.
Wow.
He recruited Akonje into politics. So all the people who entered into party politics, including Kwame Nkrumah, all of them passed through, let me say, either we say the hands or with a relationship with Dr. JB Danquah.
I see.
Yes. Yes. So that is why he was known as the Doyen without any argument. But when it comes to the official title as the Doyen, this is the reason why they call him the Doyen. JB was able to move to the various tribes, Evers, Gans, and gave them a certain, you could call it propaganda or whatever theory that they all migrated from Asian Ghana and that they shouldn't allow the current differences to set them apart, that they should rather come together with this concept of Ghanaism. And the people bought into it, and it brought some tribal unity. And he was able to convince the Asante Hene to append his signature to form one nation with the Gold Coast in 1943. And the British governor said Asante Hene had let him down. And then the Secretary of State was called Oliver. I've forgotten the other.
So what you are saying about convincing the Asante Hene to agree, is this documented?
Yes.
Is it in the book?
It is in the book.
Is it the one who suggested the name Ghana?
Yes. He suggested the name Ghana.
Really?
And he did that.
What year is this?
He officially did that in 1944.
1944.
Do you know why? The bond of 1844 was 100
but
years.
I thought when the motion for independence was being moved, there's a school of thought that he and the UGCC felt Nkrumah was rushing, so they were not in favor of it.
No, they are all not true.
Really?
Yeah, they are all not true. The name Ghana, JB Danquah brought a lot of concept. The name should be used for independence. According to Danquah, his first name was Voteria, River Vota. JB Danquah dreamed that one day we will all be called Votarians.
The name was supposed to be Voteria.
Yes.
That was his first idea.
That is according to him. Everything I'm saying.
And these things are in his letters? Or
yes, that's why my book is called Echoes. These things are like, as I'm talking to you, somebody's recording and narrating it to people. So it is not a third person research that I'm bringing.
So these are letters he wrote?
Yes. That was the first name he chose. Voteria for our great river Volta. And his reason,
just like Nigeria,
yes,
or Niger.
His reason was that he didn't want a foreign identity. He didn't want a white man to give us an identity. Something in an environment, he should pick it. And then he said by 1936, he was convinced that the name should be Ghana. And then he wrote a poem on Ghana in 1936.
There's a poem in the book?
Yes, about the woman he loved. You know, it's JB Danquah who revealed that Ghana is the same as Guinea. And he reveals all these things in his writings. So, and he even explains the root word of Ghana. Ghana comes from the word K-A-N-A, or Akana Kingdom. All of these are in the book in his letters. And he explains where Ghana even started, 500 BC, and explains how Ghana fell.
Although the current Gold Coast had no direct relationship with the Ghana Empire that he referred to. He sort of drew inspiration from the Ghana Empire.
No, to him, his research, we are the direct descendants. Some intellectuals find fault with some of his research, but what he was able to achieve was that he was able to build faith and unity in the people, and he was able to get Asante united with the Gold Coast. And when you read,
and you said this is 1943.
Yeah, 1943.
But the UGCC was formed in 1947
because they had independence of mind and they were working towards it. So in 1947, the Gold Coast Youth Conference realized that no, they have prepared the minds of the people. Now they can form a political party to claim government. So that was the reason why the UGCC was formed.
In
1947.
August the 4th.
As a matter of fact, the UGCC was an amalgamation of two political groups, one led by Edward Akufo-Addo and Ateku. They were forming a political party called Gold Coast People's League in Accra here, and they started at Kentucky Memorial on 3rd December 1946. Then Pargrand meets JB in February 1947 with R.S. Blay. Then Pargrand puts pressure on JB to do something about independence. So Pargrand starts something from the Western Province, which they call the Gold Coast National Party, and they later invited Edward Akufo-Addo to come so that they have.
And this is our Akufo-Addo's father.
Akufo-Addo's father. So Akufo-Addo's political group became the Accra branch of the UGCC.
So who are these people? So of course JB is the one.
There's the JB, and this is R.S. Blay.
The one to his left?
Yes.
Who is the man behind him?
Akufo-Addo's father.
The one to his right behind him?
Kwame Nkrumah.
On the man's right?
I think William Oforiatta.
William Oforiatta?
Yes.
And then who's the next to JB?
That's the one.
You are not
these
sure.
Two,
you are not sure of these.
Sure.
So who are, this is UGCC?
Yes.
So this is 1947.
Sure.
When Nkrumah was brought in.
Yes.
I see.
Yes. So when people say that JB,
but Pargrand is not in this picture, because you said R.S. Blay and Pargrand were the Western guys.
Yeah. You know, Pargrand was not known to be an active person of the UGCC. He was more like a patron behind, a father. A
financier.
Yes, who united them.
Because Nkrumah mentions that when he was going to London, Pargrand gave him money.
Yes.
To go and study. He mentions in his autobiography.
Yes. So
he had the money.
Yes. Pargrand was very rich. Pargrand was very, very, very rich.
Okay, I see.
And he was more of uniting them, encouraging them, and any decision they took, they called upon him. Now, when people say that the UGCC, Danquah said they should wait for independence.
So, yes, UGCC, but I mean, that's what we were taught, that UGCC's motto was self-government within the shortest possible time, and then CPP was self-government now. Indeed, Nkrumah was ejected. But are you aware that after the 48 riots and the 6 were arrested, the history teaches us that the 6 blamed some of the problems they faced from Nkrumah's
It's not true.
restlessness?
It's not true.
Which one is not true?
They didn't blame Nkrumah. They could not even blame Nkrumah.
So how was Nkrumah ejected from the UGCC, or he left on his own?
Nkrumah planned to leave on his own, and I have them all here in my book. Nkrumah writes in his own autobiography that when they had discussion in prison, he realized that his views were different from the others. And from prison, he made up his mind that a split will come. And if a split will come, he was determined to do things in such a way that the masses will be on his side.
Fair enough. So, but they had different views about how to achieve independence. That's history.
No, that's not true.
Why?
It's not true.
So how come the people of Ghana opted for CPP and not UGCC?
The CPP is the same as the UGCC.
Oh, what are you saying? Nkrumah wanted to. Wow, you even forget that in the 51 election, Nkrumah was in detention. Nkrumah was in detention.
Now let's.
No, I'm coming. You are trying to tell me that UGCC and CPP are the same, but it can't be the same. Because Nkrumah ran a different party to JB. Obeche Bilamte was on a different ticket and lost the election to Nkrumah. Is that not true?
Wow, it's not true. You see.
What it's not true.
Okay, wait. Let's pick it from if the UGCC wanted independence within the shortest possible time,
yes,
or whatever. Let me read something to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is from your book, by the way.
Come again.
This is from your book.
This is from my book.
Okay.
But I am not.
Who are you quoting?
I am quoting what got them arrested.
All right. So what's in commission?
The governor's report.
Okay.
What got them arrested?
All
now
right.
this is what happened. The independence journey, the independence struggle.
Yeah.
This is what happened. The new Kwame Nkrumah has staged a boycott.
We all know that.
And what they don't tell you is that the Danquah and his people took advantage of the boycott. Any town that new Kwame Nkrumah went, they went behind to tell the people that it is independence time. Let's kick the white.
So they took advantage of the
yes.
and of course the 48 shooting of the.
Very good. What people fail to ask is that if New Kwame Nkrumah staged a boycott, why was he not arrested if there was a riot?
Good.
But New Kwame Nkrumah was exempted because the British knew that the UGCC leaders were behind instigating the people to turn against the white man.
So the 6 of them who were arrested were blamed for the riots.
Yes.
Because they took advantage.
And it was not only the riot that is why they were arrested. Let me read it to you. You see what they have failed to.
So read it to me. What are
you reading to me? I'm coming. What they have failed is that they say, oh, they blame Nkrumah. It's not true. When you read, they were charged, Bernard.
All 6 of them.
They were charged.
Yeah.
When you arrest somebody, you charge the person.
Yeah.
When you read the charge, you have to go and read their defense. Then you can know whether they blame somebody or they didn't blame somebody.
Fair enough.
I have read the charge the white man issued against them for arresting them. And I'm reading one from the white man.
What page is
the
this?
Governor. This is page 62 of my book.
Page 62.
JB Danquah, right? When the riot occurred on Saturday, 28 February 1948.
Yeah.
Sunday, JB Danquah, on behalf of the UGCC, sent a cablegram to the governor calling for the removal of the governor, and that day the UGCC were prepared to take up the government, right? And an inquiry commission should be sent for a constituent assembly for a full independence. Now let me read what the governor stated. He said, unless colonial government is changed, a new government of people and their chiefs installed at the center immediately, outraged masses now completely out of control with strikes, threatening in police quarters and rank, and the file police indifferent, or say working committee, United Gold Coast Convention, declare prepared and ready to take over interim government. Are you getting a point?
What page is this?
This is 62.
And who wrote this?
This is JB Danquah's cablegram. This is the reason why they were arrested.
To who?
To the governor, to the British, to the Secretary of State, and to the governor of the Gold Coast, or to, let's simply say, the colonial government, right? And this is why they were arrested, because they called for the removal of the governor, and that they were prepared to take up.
So I just wanted to just clarify something. We've made a point. Nkrumah leaves UGCC and forms CPP.
Yes.
He offers a different version of a vision of the colony to Ghanaians, and Ghanaians prefer him. Therefore, they vote for CPP.
Because he deceived them.
In what way?
He deceived them because he himself made it clear that he deceived them.
Where?
When he wrote in his book that he went about doing his propaganda.
So he deceived the Ghanaians.
But propaganda is that you are exaggerating.
He deceived Gold Coasters that what?
See, we were made to believe that Kwame Nkrumah formed a new party. Is that not it? No, is that not it? No, I'm coming. Is that not it?
No, but the CPP is Kwame Nkrumah's party.
No, so the CPP was different from UGCC.
I don't even know what you are asking me. CPP and UGCC were the two political parties at the time.
So CPP is different from UGCC.
Those are your words.
No, I'm asking a question.
I'm not here to answer
Kwame Nkrumah, listen, Kwame Nkrumah
yes.
stated that he did not want to raise any doubt in the minds of the people that his party was completely a new party. What does that mean?
I don't know.
The reason is that Kwame Nkrumah did not tell the people was forming a new party. Okay. Kwame Nkrumah told the people that their leaders have gone to take bribe. Okay. Ghana's independence was issued in 1948, and the colonial, the white paper is here. They have the number of the white paper, the reference number for a takeover government. Okay. And Nkrumah is telling the people that JB traveled to UK, and it is true, he went to UK. He went for a Pan-Africanist conference. Okay. And Nkrumah is saying that when he traveled to UK, he is going to take bribe. And they've given £25,000 each to the leaders except him. And that he was not forming a new party. He did not have new ideas. They said Nkrumah had different ideology from Danquah. Nkrumah himself said at the time, he told the people he wasn't coming with new ideas, he wasn't coming with new promoters, and that the party was not a new party. So that is why his party was called Convention People's Party, because the UGCC at the time were known as the Convention People.
I see.
So Nkrumah suggested that the name given by Komla Gbedema in Botiu was Ghana People's Party. That would have been the name of the CPP. And Nkrumah said people will know that we have formed a new party. Nkrumah himself said that they will know we have formed a new party. So what the history doesn't talk about is that they made JB Danquah to resign as the working committee member and send memorandum to all the branches of the UGCC that their leaders have stepped down. The only leader is Kwame Nkrumah. So when you are in CPP, you are still in the same group because the people at the time knew the UGCC as the Convention People.
I see.
And when you read many of the letters, how they were charged, they were called Convention. And Nkrumah said, I did not want them to believe, I didn't want to raise any doubt that what he had formed was a completely new party. But was he not forming a new party? So the people followed him, believing that they were in the same group.
All right. I need to take a breather. A lot of stuff. The book is titled Echoes of the Doyen, and my guest for the first part is Berima PSC Ochidako. I'll ask him a quick question when we come back before I bring in my next guest, who also will propound Dr. Nkrumah's ideas. This is The Point of View. Don't go away. Welcome back. The Point of View tonight is a double decker. We started off with the man who's launching a book today. It's titled Echoes of the Doyen. The JB Danquah is a biography essentially. Berima PSC Ochidako has written 5 books or so. This is his 6th book. And this is the first proper biography he's done on JB Danquah. So you say there are a number of things in this book that will surprise Ghanaians.
Yes.
Including the fact that you believe Nkrumah deceived Ghanaians by telling them that JB Danquah had basically absconded on the independence struggle. Yeah. And also presented the CPP as the same UGCC they knew.
Yes.
Wonderful. What else is in the book that you believe will shock Ghanaians?
Many people will get to know that 6 March is the legacy of JB Danquah.
6 March is the legacy?
Yes.
How so?
First of all, he said that in 1944, and then during the motion of Kwame Nkrumah's independence motion, it was JB who suggested that Ghana should be independent 6 March 1954. Nkrumah objected to it, but the British accepted it.
57, you mean?
Yeah, I'm talking about the day of independence.
Yes.
The 6th March.
6th March, yes. Because the bond of 1844 was signed on the 6th March.
That is JB Danquah's.
And this is in the hands of the Legislative Assembly?
Yes. The British also records that. I've done my research, and the British attributes.
Okay. So you're saying the name Ghana was his suggestion?
Ghana. Yes.
The 6th March date was his proposal?
The flag we have, the Ghana flag,
was proposed or?
It's not proposed. That was the colors they chose. JB Danquah and co chose the color red, gold, green.
So let's separate the choosing of the color to the design of the flag, because the flag
Yes.
was designed by Theodosia Okum.
Yeah,
That
but
is
the
without
concept
doubt.
is not her concept.
Okay, so where is it recorded that he proposed the red, gold, and green?
They are all written, JB Danquah narrating how they came about the colors.
This is in letters he wrote, or
Sure.
in letters he wrote to who?
A number of, even to Nkrumah, even to
So
Nkrumah.
the letters he wrote from. So do you publish those letters in your book?
Sure, reference.
So he writes to Nkrumah. What year is he writing to Nkrumah about this?
Nkrumah's autobiography, JB Danquah replied Nkrumah, sent a copy to the Daily Graphic. It's recorded in the Daily Graphic. And his disagreement with Nkrumah, he talks about it. And he tells Nkrumah, the stone the builders rejected has become the chief cornerstone. You are in power. It is our colors that they are using as the national flag.
So this was. So are you saying that this response to Nkrumah was published in the Graphic?
Yes.
What year is this?
30th, somewhere May 1957. Nkrumah published his autobiography in April, a month after JB.
He wrote back.
Yes.
So if I go to Graphic, I'll see that.
Or if you ask me, I'll send it to you.
Okay, that would be nice.
I was-
So the name Ghana, the 6th March date,
Yes.
the red, gold, and green
Yes.
concept. Although
And
I need to point out that prior to this, Ethiopia, the only non-colonized African country, their flag was already green, yellow, red.
Our flag is from Ethiopia. What it means is that we want to project our Pan-Africanism.
So I'm saying that did JB get the idea from Ethiopia?
Yes.
So then that can be said. It's just an Ethiopia flag he copied, right?
Yes. No.
Because Ethiopia's color is red, gold, and green.
You're not getting it. The concept in Nkrumah JB had was they want to pick the African heritage to build the modern society. So they were just doing research into Asian Egypt.
And when they saw what the Ethiopians had done,
yes.
So you said JB recommended it.
They didn't. They had chosen their flag that this is going to be the flag.
In the UGCC?
Colors. Yes.
Okay.
In their colors.
So that's the third one.
Yes.
I'm coming. Name Ghana, 6th March, red, gold, green.
Yes.
What else about his life are you seeking to correct that we did not know, or that the book will reveal, or something else the book will tell us that we are not aware of?
Okay. Many people in the NPP talk about property owning democracy, about JB Danquah.
Yeah.
But what I find it a bit error is that all our leaders go outside the country and market that they should come, foreign investors should come here. JB is not in support of that. JB is saying that government should empower people to own large-scale enterprises. So it is JB Danquah's vision that City or ChannelOne should rise to be like BBC. Instead of spending your energy on outside nations for them to come into our market, empower your people to dominate the market. So he believes in free enterprise, all right, but he believes that it should be Ghanaian owned, not foreign controlled.
I see. So he may not agree with some of the way current MPP people portray their economic philosophy.
Sure.
You think he may not agree with them?
It's not he thinks. If you read what he wrote,
It's very clear that he
it's
doesn't.
clear.
Was he a capitalist?
JB was not a capitalist. And Kufuor has been saying that, though he was not even a wealthy man himself.
Was he socialist? Or
He wasn't socialist. You know JB's concept? JB is saying that Africa, we had a rich heritage. So when he was drafting first constitution for independence, he listed chieftaincy, democracy, and modernism. He believed that chieftaincy is a model of our custom and everything. So let's learn something from that institution. Let's blend it with democracy and modernism. Modernism.
Yeah.
So JB was saying that we have values, we have traits, we have things that we should pick. For instance, JB's support for free enterprise was not because of Western influence, but it is because in the olden days, the chiefs didn't control trade. They gave room for people to trade. They gave security to their people and gave the enabling environment. That is why he believes in free trade, not because of the West. Everything about JB was based upon our culture, was based upon our heritage. And JB was saying that we should learn from our own heritage. And that was the reason why he did not become popular. Because if you are capitalist, the Western world will push you. If you are a socialist, the socialist world.
So he wanted to
will push
blend
you.
it to form something distinctly African.
It's something distinctly
And because his
African.
brother was the Ochehene, he sort of appreciated where the chiefs were coming from,
Yes.
but also where the intellectuals were coming from.
That is why,
Okay.
for independence, JB proposed a bicameral chamber of parliament, a chamber for chiefs and a chamber for
By the way,
politicians.
did he support federal or unitary state?
Very good. JB Danquah's idea was a unitary. So he wrote to Nkrumah that with Gold Coast, this small side, not like Nigeria.
So in a sense, he and Nkrumah were on the same page on unitary.
No, the constitution that was unitary was drafted by JB Danquah.
Alone.
He drafted it for it to be voted upon.
He alone.
Yes.
How does one man draft the constitution?
So you read it, it's in the book. He said it is not the policy of the United Gold Coast. No, I'm talking about the draft of the constitution.
I see.
And then he listed that it should be
I see.
a
unitary state. Fair enough.
And then
because Nkrumah also explains in his book that he did not think we should be a federal state.
No, the reason why JB later shifted for the federal is because when Nkrumah inherited government, the 1951 constitution that Nkrumah inherited to become the prime minister was already a unitary state constitution.
Yeah, but I'm saying that
I'm coming.
I'm just making a
Nkrumah
point.
amended things in 1954.
Hold on. Nkrumah was for unitary. That is without doubt. He was never in favor of a federalist state of government.
Very good.
That's clear.
But the unitary was designed by Danquah and his people.
But how did Danquah then become a federalist?
Very good. That's the question we need to ask and answer. Nkrumah, when he became the prime minister in 1954, called for an amendment in the constitution and changed a number of things. And then they felt that the new constitution Nkrumah had brought in 1954 will not sit well with them. And therefore, based upon what Nkrumah had done, they are now proposing federal. So initially, they were all for unitary.
Where can people get the book to buy?
EPP Bookshop, Kingdom Bookshop.
How many pages? I think it's about two.
Also to be
230 pages.
Available on Amazon.
And it's titled Echoes
from the Dorian.
We'll put it on the screen. I'll talk to you again. Okay. You've started something very interesting, but I'll leave it for now. We are happy Independence. Happy Independence Day to you. And
happy Independence
it's always good to have these discussions. History is conflictual. History is sometimes debated. A nation must reckon with its past so it can move forward to its future. When we come back, I'll speak to a Garveyist and Nkrumahist who also happens to be the DG of NDPC, Dr. Nimoy Thompson. Or is it the board chair? We'll be right back. Stay with us. We're still here on The Point of View, and it's a double-decker. I started off with the author of a book on JB Danquah, who says he wants to correct some of the misimpressions around JB. My main Nkrumahist and man I interview when it comes to the ideas of Nkrumah is Dr. Nimoy Thompson, who is now the board chair.
Chairman of the commission.
Chairman, it confuses me. The chairman of the commission.
I used to be the director general.
This is what Kwesi Bocho used to do.
Yes, yes.
Wonderful. So it's fair to call you an Nkrumahist. The first time I came across you, of course, you used to write in the Daily Graphic, but then you were part of a group called the Patriots.
Yes,
many years ago, and you were the Nkrumah people.
Yes, the CPP Patriots.
I think there was Bright Akwete was part.
Whole Professor Akosa, Kwame Nkrumah, Kosidede.
Yes, Kosidede was even on set today. Kwame Nkrumah was also there.
Oh, is that so?
And then I think Professor George Penny Hagan, you can say, was CPP's flag bearer some time ago.
Some time ago, right, he was.
Akosa was also there.
Yes.
And then there was an economist, another Greek economist.
Which one would this be?
I forget his name.
With the Patriots or with CPP?
With the Patriots.
Okay.
And a Greek economist.
Okay. Not Dr. K.
So what were you guys trying to do with the Patriots?
At the time, the ideal was to revive the CPP. Okay. So we actually went around seeking to rebuild the CPP from the ground on up. But of course, there had been seismic changes over time. So it was kind of hard to do that after being suppressed and outlawed for many years. It was hard to revive it. So the idealism and the emotional attachment, yes, remained. But the reality had changed. And the nature of our political party system, the first past the post, is such that political parties ultimately always gravitate towards two dominant ones, no matter how hard you try. And we've seen that on both sides. We've seen Rukubire's attempt. We've seen the National Reform Party and other things. So eventually...
So you lean towards the closest relative of the CPP, which would then be NDC.
Precisely, but there's always a distinction between being an Nkrumahist and being a member of the CPP.
Okay.
You can be an Nkrumahist without necessarily belonging to the CPP.
Okay.
And we have Nkrumahists outside of Ghana.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's that critical
So
distinction.
who is an Nkrumahist?
Nkrumahist is anyone who subscribes to the ideals or ideologies or beliefs of Kwame Nkrumah, economic independence, Pan-Africanism, and all those other ideals.
So all Nkrumahists believe in not just political independence, but economic liberation.
Yes.
Not just of Ghana, but the whole of Africa.
Precisely.
And they see neocolonialism as the extension of imperialism.
Exactly.
So neocolonialism is also a problem
Precisely.
for them.
Yes.
So I think I get that. So, but you're also a Marcus Garveyist.
Big time.
That's what confuses me now.
Big time.
So was Garvey Nkrumah's mentor then?
Yes, precisely. Nkrumah actually pays glowing tribute
to Marcus Garvey.
That of all the books that he read while he was abroad, only Marcus Garvey's book, and I have a copy, it's a powerful book. Of all the books that he read the whole while, only Marcus Garvey's book, The Philosophy and Opinions of Marcus Garvey, fired up his imagination. And it's the kind of book that you read and you want to get on the plane and come back to Ghana or anywhere in Africa. And it's part of the thing that actually spurred me to leave New York and come to Ghana.
So what was Garvey's main idea?
Basically, back to Africa, empowerment of the black man. He used Africans synonymously with black people for obvious reasons. Of course, we have more than black people in Africa. But he was the expression, Africa for Africans. And if you receive a private email from me, you see at the bottom, or you come into my house, the first thing you see on the wall is Garvey and Nkrumah, and they're saying, Garvey says, what others have done, we can do. It covers so much. It means so much.
So Garvey was the principal inspiration of Nkrumah.
Definitely.
Although he had a good relationship with George Padmore and W.E.B. Du Bois.
Yes. And it's interesting because Garvey and Du Bois were like bitter rivals. They insulted each other.
They had different ideas about achieving the same aim.
Not necessarily. Du Bois felt, Du Bois' position was that of integration, that black Americans don't have to come to Africa to live a better life, that they were entitled to the America that they helped build, so they should stay there and take advantage of it. And Garvey's position was that no matter what you do,
come back home.
You're not going to come back to Africa and let's build Africa.
Including his proposal for a shipping line and all of that.
He did establish the shipping line. He had the Black Cross Auxiliary after the Red Cross. He had the Black, he named so many things after the term black. And this is what I was raising in an article recently that I wrote challenging some historical accounts that the term Black Star was coined by someone 300 years ago. It was actually coined by Marcus Garvey. And it was based on the tour that he had in the Americas, the Caribbean, and Canada. And he realized that no matter where he went, black people, whether they were in the majority, whether they were in the minority, they were always at the bottom of the economic ladder. So then he said, I will not rest until I make Africa the black star among the constellation of nations.
Oh,
and that's where the name
came from.
Yes, the black star among the constellation of nations. Then he forms the Universal Negro Improvement Association. Mind you, the term Negro is actually originally Spanish or Portuguese, meaning black, negro. And then the English version, of course, is black. So he had the UNIA, Universal Negro Improvement Association, for repatriation. So if you listen to some of the reggae music, some of them actually do refer to repatriation, like Dennis Brown. But Marley doesn't do much about repatriation. He's more
there's a song he talks about repatriation.
Yes, he does mention that, but I'm talking about those who espouse the message itself.
Okay.
But whereas Du Bois, as I said, was more of an integrationist, the irony here is that in the end, Du Bois actually died on African soil, and Marcus Garvey died in London.
It's one of the
humorous sides. But they were very bitter
rivals. What about George Padmore?
George Padmore was Nkrumah's political advisor. They had met in London during the Pan-African conference, and Nkrumah invited all these people to come and join him, provide intellectual guidance. And it was in Padmore's book, The Gold Coast Revolution, that we are told that the Big Six actually did not, quote unquote, initiate the demonstrations of 1948, and that they were more or less accidental beneficiaries, the British.
Because it was Nikwabena Bonny's boycott.
Well, there were two things, the convergence of two events. Nikwabena Bonny advocated a boycott of the European merchants, AWAM, Association of West African Merchants. He wasn't advocating for independence per se.
Yeah.
Yes. And then you have the ex-servicemen's union, who are also advocating for payment of their benefits from the war. They also were not openly advocating for independence.
So almost two unrelated agitations,
yes. So,
which the political people took advantage of.
But they did say that. They said, listen, now let's take advantage of this thing here to spur our own message. That's when Danquah wrote the thing that the young man wrote, that, this is a time, get rid of the governor, we are prepared to take over. There were two statements that were written by the leadership of the UGCC then. Danquah wrote the long one, that's what this gentleman read, and then Nkrumah wrote a shorter one, but addressed to more than the secretary to the colonies. He addressed it to the New York Times, to all sorts of organizations around the world, to give his, or at least his view of the struggle.
On what should
yes,
happen.
on an international flavor.
So 48 was definitely a turning point.
It was a turning point in many ways, yes.
And then the arrest of the 6 pushed them into prominence.
Yes, the 6 met later on to see how they could take advantage of what had happened. And then Chrissy, Gerald Chrissy, who had just by the various accounts that we've seen, he was new. And he was taken aback. He hadn't experienced anything like that. So he's like, okay, let me just arrest these guys. But they really had nothing to do with either of the two events. And then Nkrumah himself says that in his autobiography, that he was aware of the ex-servicemen's unions planning to have the demonstration. Even he and Danquah had addressed them before at a rally. But in terms of planning, they had nothing to do with that. And it's critical because, again, one of the false histories that were told on television that I had to come out to clarify was that somehow Nkrumah had, Akweje had dictated the petition to Kwame Nkrumah, and Kwame Nkrumah put a piece of paper on somebody's back, and when the white people saw the handwriting, they said, no, this is Kwame Nkrumah. It's all a lie, it never happened. The actual signatory, the person who signed the petition, was the president of the ex-servicemen's union, called BEA Tamaklo. He was the president. And he was supported by 7 other people. So if anything, we want to call anything big, maybe Big 8. They actually signed the petition along with BEA Tamaklo.
Yeah.
The letter went to the governor. The governor responded to BEA Tamaklo. The permit for the demonstration itself was issued in the name of BEA Tamaklo. So none of the UGCC members were involved in the organization. And of course, they have sympathies.
But it was clear from the time in prison together, and I think PSA mentions that Nkrumah realized that his approach and their approach was different.
Certainly.
So the split, sort of, they knew they couldn't be together after that encounter in prison.
That's because Nkrumah was a man in a hurry, and he was exposed to political organization in a way that these other gentlemen, mostly lawyers, rich merchants, who like to take their time to do things. Nkrumah had been involved in political mobilization in the US. He had lived a hard life. At some point, he even sold fish in the streets of Harlem. So he was exposed to all these things, black preachers. So he had this power of oratory and power of organization and mobilization. So in a sense, he knew what to do and how to do it. The problem with the other group is that they knew what to do, but they didn't know how to do it in terms of political mobilization. And that's what led to this split. But when he came in, by various accounts, there's several books that have been written. Kentinka Danquah Fodro, he's written the Danquah Busia tradition and the politics of Ghana. He recounts some of these things. So he was like a man in a hurry. He helped open the first national offices and so forth. And then you had people who thought that he was using the party for his own personal ends. That came when he formed the Committee of Youth Organizations, which is to spur the youth and other. They're like, oh no, this guy is up to something else.
A previous speaker says Nkrumah deceived Ghanaians and demonized JB Danquah, telling them that JB had taken a bribe, which is why sort of Ghanaians were no longer favorably disposed to JB Danquah. And he seeks to correct that in his book, that JB Danquah had gone for a different assignment, but Nkrumah took advantage of his absence and that of the others to entrench himself. I don't know if you've read anything on that.
No, the thing is that you have to understand the politics of the time. They were hurling insults and accusations in both directions.
Okay.
It wasn't just Nkrumah making allegations or hurling insults. They were also insulting him for all sorts of things. So it was within this context that the issue of who was who or who favored what came in. But we cannot play down or dismiss JB Danquah's role before Nkrumah came, and even in the first term of Nkrumah. JB Danquah was more or less a protege of Kingsley Hayford. And so, and during this period...
J.E. Kingsley Hayford.
Yeah, J.E. Kingsley Hayford. And during this period, Danquah himself was involved in the youth movements and so forth and so on. And this is one reason why the Watson Commission referred him as the doyen of Gold Coast, but yeah, because he had been involved in these things. And even after, sometimes I think we exaggerate the differences between him and Nkrumah. And I think it's rather tragic the way he died. Because they did, to a very large extent, work together. Nkrumah indeed did build on some of the progress that JB Danquah made before Nkrumah himself came. It was JB Danquah's efforts that actually got the Asante to renounce the Asante Confederation Council and to join the Legislative Council towards the formation of one nation state. It was a major event. So even before Nkrumah came in, we had this major move, and if you read Danquah Fojo's book, Danquah did this through secret diplomacy, by secretly engaging the Asante and telling him, listen, we are better off by working together.
And because he was partly Asante and his brother was the Ochihini, he also has some leverage with the chiefs.
The chiefs, yeah, he was royal, he was related to...
So he knew how to engage them, and he was also an intellectual. So
exactly.
Also,
even though... there had been a breach between the intellectuals of the Gold Coast and the chiefs at some point.
So he's like the bridge.
Precisely,
like the bridge.
Because he belonged to both worlds. He belonged to a royal family, and he was also an intellectual. So how do you bridge the two? And so he helped to do these things. When Nkrumah himself came into office in 1951, one of the first things he did, well, he did a number of things, but one of them was to form the first, shall we say, all-inclusive government, building on, of course, on what Danquah had done before by inviting the Asante Council's representative, a fellow by the name of E.O. Asafweje, to become part of the CPP government against opposition from the foot soldiers of the CPP. They're like, no, we don't want anybody from Asante Council to be a member of the party. We fought for the struggle.
And Asafweje was one of their first lawyers.
Exactly. No, he was actually minister for...
Yes, I'm told he's the first Asante lawyer, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, he was a lawyer. He was a very prominent lawyer.
Guy.
There's another fellow from the northern provinces, northern territories, that Nkrumah brought in to form this government of national unity. And let me just state that what Nkrumah's conception of national development was, because it was this framework that governed his approach to everything. And within that context, people fail to realize that he worked very, very closely with Danquah also. In fact, there was a major corruption investigation that was initiated at the instance of Danquah. And Nkrumah was more than willing to listen. There was a time he even nominated Danquah to some judicial commission, and I think the party foot soldiers again kicked. So foot soldiers have been influential for quite some time. But Nkrumah's view of national development was based on two pillars. The first one was on nation building, which is to hold together the nation as we had inherited it. The Northern Territories, Ashanti, Transvolta, the Gold Coast proper, so that it wouldn't break up. And then the other pillar was socioeconomic progress. And this is where he gradually then had to become tough on certain groups to prevent the disintegration of the country we knew then as Gold Coast and now Ghana. So I personally find it ironic that in the past few weeks, at least, Nkrumah has come under this gratuitous, relentless attacks. He was a dictator and so forth and so on. The irony here is that the very things he did that preserved the integrity of this country is what they're accusing him of.
So are you saying that had he not done the things he did, the union was possibly going to break?
We may not have gone as we know it today. We may not.
Wow.
The Avoidance of Discrimination Act, 1957, which preceded, because the various political parties anticipated the Avoidance of Discrimination Act. That's when they formed the United Party, UP Party, after independence, November 1957. The Avoidance of Discrimination Act was December 1957, and it outlawed parties by ethnic names. So as we speak, you cannot form a political party in Ghana based on ethnic names. This goes back to...
which was why the UP came with the Northern People's Party,
exactly,
the Eweland Congress, and
that's how they all came together, including Gashifimokwe, Wasa Youth Association.
So they had to come to unite.
Exactly, that's what United Party was.
So you think that's one of Nkrumah's legacies in putting the nation...
It wasn't intended to unite them, but united them.
Because he outlawed...
He outlawed that. You couldn't, as we speak, you cannot set up a political party with a religious name.
Wow.
We had the MAP, Muslim Association Party. We had the Gashifimokwe. It wasn't a party, but it operated as such with that name. They also, UP actually was launched here in Accra with Atokwashi and all those people in attendance here in Accra as a result of that. So it's ironic that we would accuse them for something that held Ghana together.
Well, you can both truth can coexist, right? Somebody can do things to preserve the union but also be dictatorial, but that's not even my point. What was his relationship with chiefs like, based on all your readings and your... Because there's a certain sense that Nkrumah and the chiefs were not the best of friends. Maybe we'll let you think through that. Let's take a short break, guys, so that I'll wrap up. Let's take a short break. This is the point of view. My guest, Dr. Nimoy Thompson, for the second part of the show, whilst we discuss the role of Nkrumah in our independence, having discussed JB Danquah, so stay with us. Welcome back. We're still talking Ghana's independence, our history, and now we're looking at Nkrumah more closely. So you've argued that the Discrimination Act that Nkrumah...
Avoidance of Discrimination
was
Act.
very critical in the way eventually Ghana would become.
Yes.
What was his relationship with chiefs like? Because I have this sense that he and chiefs were not the best of friends.
It depends, or it depended then.
Okay.
It was pretty much transactional. There were some chiefs that supported his vision and agenda, and they were safe. And those who sought to subvert his agenda, obviously, were on his wrong side. Perhaps I should use the opportunity then to address his relationship with Ashanti in particular, because there's been this misconception that Nkrumah hated Ashanti and Ashanti also hated Nkrumah and the CPP. Nothing could be further from the truth. There was a brief period of violence, yes, 1954, 1955, and 1956, when the National Liberation Movement was formed. But overall, the CPP had a massive impact in Ashanti and Kumasi in particular before the 1954 elections. And the irony, again, is that the trigger was over cocoa prices. It's funny that we are talking about cocoa prices.
So Bafo say Akutu.
No, but before Bafo said, no. So Nkrumah then says, listen, it's funny that it's happening now, that cocoa prices fluctuate a lot.
Yeah.
What we want to propose, and it was called the Cocoa Duty and Development Fund Amendment Bill.
Okay.
Yes. And Nkrumah said, listen, we're going to fix the price of cocoa, all right? It fluctuates a lot. When it is below the fixed price, we will pay you still the fixed price. But when it's above that, we will keep the difference in the special fund for development and also to support cocoa farmers.
Okay.
This was the basis of that. Now, the small or smaller cocoa farmers actually favored that because Nkrumah before then had even been giving them subsidized loans during the lean season.
Okay.
And so this was meant to be part of the development approach. That, okay, we'll fix the price.
Yeah.
If it's low, we pay you whatever, and they decide and that. But then there were disaffected members in the CPP who then took it, because in those days, elections weren't straightforward. Sometimes the Central Committee chose candidates as a way of managing balance, regional balance, gender balance, and those who were not chosen then became independent candidates, or they simply went out to help form other parties. Okay. So they then got angry with Kwame Nkrumah, and they formed what was known as Council for Higher Cocoa Prices.
Wow.
Yes. And it was out of that that then the National Liberation Party, not even movement, it was called National Liberation Party. Okay. And the Asantehene opposed that. Asantehene had always insisted that Asante's system of governance was superior to that of the British. The party system was too destructive and so forth. And
so he wasn't encouraging political parties being formed.
Exactly, but then they changed the name, but for all practical purposes, they operated as a party.
Oh,
but the name was changed from National Liberation Party to National Liberation Movement.
Okay.
So if you read Dennis Austin's book, Politics in Ghana, 1946 to 1960, when Balfour Sakwato presented the NLM to the Asantuma Council, he actually emphasized the fact that this is not a party, this is a movement.
Because he knew that Santini would not favor political party.
They always felt that their system was superior. But even though they were still stuck with these British things. So yes, I've always found the irony now that we are talking about cocoa prices and cocoa. But this happened 75 years ago when he took over. But his system, his relationship with the chiefs, as I said, were dependent on their own role in the national development agenda. I just read not long ago, a couple of years ago, in June Millen. I don't know if you know June Millen. She was the executrix for Kwame Nkrumah. She wrote a biography of Kwame Nkrumah. And in that book, she actually says that the name Osajifo was given to Kwame Nkrumah by the Asantehene.
Is it?
Yes. And Asantehene, Kwame Nkrumah then had to bring it before cabinet, I think, for them to approve before he actually started using that. So it's in June Millen's.
So it was given to him by the Asantehene?
Yes.
Osajifo?
Yes. And then people also tend to ignore. For one thing, Nkrumah had great admiration for the Ashantis. One, for their bravery in fighting the British. You know what they say, the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yeah.
And so Nkrumah hated imperialism. The Ashanti had fought them. So he had this respect for Ashantis in general. So besides bringing on Asafo as a member, in 1952, he launches the Accelerated Education Program. The Accelerated Education Program. Asante was the earliest beneficiaries of the Accelerated Education Program. KNUST was formed from that. Opokuware was formed from that. There were many schools that were built. I don't know if you've ever heard of Akosa Primary School at North Centreso. It was actually named after Professor Akosa, Bedru Akosa now. His father, who was a commissioner at Sechere West or Sechere East, he was a CPP district commissioner, but he had a house at North Centreso. And so they named Akosa School after him. And I also happened, that's where I actually started school, Akosa Primary.
So you have some Kumasi upbringing, which is why you understand these things a bit better.
Yes, but it's only now. Of course, growing up, I didn't really relate. If I was a kid when Nkrumah was overthrown, and all I remember people singing CD Kwasi ABT, that's all I know.
Wow.
It wasn't until I grew up that I started looking back and realizing the contributions of Nkrumah to Ashanti region.
But the main Ashanti in his government was Krobeduse, correct?
Say that again?
Krobeduse was one of the main Ashanti people.
Oh, certainly. But there were others.
What about Jantua? Was Jantua also
the Jantua brothers, not just one Jantua. Kwame Jantua, Nanaya's father, F.A. Jantua, and her uncle, F.A.'s brother, KSP, were both members of the CPP.
So Jantua and then, of course, Krobeduse being the most prominent minister.
But there were several others. Some of the most prolific writers for the CPP were from Bekwai, actually. They used to have something called the Bekwai Literary Society, among the most educated in the Gold Coast. Wow. They all contributed to that. But there were lesser known people. But the point is that because of this work that Nkrumah's affection for Asante, people fail to realize that Kumasi was a CPP stronghold in the 1950 municipal elections. CPP won all 6 seats, wards.
Kumasi was
a CPP stronghold. They won 6. They were disqualified for 1, so they lost that one.
Serious?
Yes. Kesley Hayford, Archie, who later on worked with, he was a councillor, what we call the assemblyman in Kumasi, Bantama. Really? And he later represented Bantama in the Legislative Assembly. Kesley Hayford, you can check that. Wow. And so the CP was very popular. It was in Kumasi that this lady, I just learned from Nana Nketia that it was actually from Salpin, but she went to Kumasi and slashed her face with a blade and used the blood to pledge allegiance to the CPP. And she actually changed her name. Till now, everybody refers to her as Ama Nkrumah, which is the female version of Kwame Nkrumah, but no one knows her real name. So Nkrumah had this relationship. The Asante chiefs who were on board with his agenda, he was okay with them. Those, and not just Asante chiefs, but chiefs anywhere, whom he felt were against the nationalist agenda. Don't forget, the chiefs had been the face of indirect rule by the colonialists. And so there was some tension, even before Nkrumah came back to Ghana, between the Aborigines Rights Society and the chiefs. They felt that the chiefs had allowed themselves to be used by the British. So there was this tension, and it took a while to work it out. But Nkrumah was more practical about that. I have no problem with chiefs. It's part of our governance system. But as long as they are willing to work with my government, why not? We'll work.
What was Nkrumah's legacy around uniting a country? Some people say his ideas around secondary education were meant to, I won't call it detribalize, but essentially to reduce ethnic rivalries.
That was more like a side benefit of this boarding school system. The boarding school system had been started long before Nkrumah became prime minister. The mission schools started, and it started for the most it became a model for the most practical of reasons. We're highly rural back then, and so to be able to give education to the most people from the most deprived areas, you had to pick them all and put them in one particular area. You couldn't open secondary schools all over. So it was so it wasn't uniquely a Kwame Nkrumah idea. It had existed before Nkrumah himself became prime minister. The question now is, do we still have to?
But he did start some schools.
Oh, he did. So
like Sweden Secondary School. They were the so-called, they call it the Ghana Trust schools.
Yes, yes. After some of the students had been dismissed for participating, right, and then Ghana National College and all that. Definitely he did that. But then, again, the one thing I forgot to mention in the accelerated education program was that he made primary education free for the first time in the Gold Coast.
Even then?
That was 1952. And then the 1961 Education Act made primary education compulsory.
Okay.
And then 1973, 79, 7-year development plan, then brought in secondary school, because we had a situation where primary education was free and compulsory. University was free, but the middle part wasn't. So the 7-year development plan was going to close that gap. And then these started with textbooks and so forth and so on. And then the coup came along, and that then fell off the...
Who was Arthur Lewis?
Arthur Lewis, you mean the economist? Yes, I think he was from St. Lucia. He was a Nobel economist, and Nkrumah brought him in as an advisor. Nkrumah had a lot of advisors, top flight advisors who came in, and Arthur Lewis was one of them, advising on
the economic.
Yeah, economic growth, and not just economic growth, but the approach.
So he was a development economist.
He was a development economist talking about surplus labor in agriculture, the fact that productivity is low. We need to build up productivity, and that once you build up productivity in agriculture, the surplus labor will have to be moved into other non-agricultural sectors and all that. But again, because Nkrumah was a politician, his sense of urgency was different from that of Lewis. So Lewis may have been technically right, but a politician will always tell you, listen, I have an election to win, I have a mandate to deliver. But yes, Lewis did make quite some sound pieces of advice to Kwame Nkrumah. The issue also that I think we need to touch on is how gradually we moved to the kind of high-handedness, if you will, of Kwame Nkrumah, which people are now using against him. Because we need to look to understand how we have things like the PDA, the Avoidance of Discrimination Act. You need to look at the evolution of elections during this period. Because I mentioned the 1951 election where the CPP won. Just imagine 34 out of 38 seats, they won everything. The remaining 4, Danquah and Oforiatta won 2. Danquah won 53%, Oforiatta won 51%, thereabout, and then the other 2 were independents. Busia, and this is very funny, Busia lost his seat, his thing, the role at Winchi. But then he went through the Asantewine Council. In those days, what later became Brong Ahafo was part of Ashanti. So Busia then went through the Asantewine Council, but it wasn't as easy as he thought. He had to compete with others. Again, he competed, then he came in 7th.
Wow.
So the person who actually won then says, okay, Prof, you take it. So then Busia, that's how come Busia ended up in the first legislative assembly. And Krobodusa used to tease him that you came in through the back door.
Wow.
Yeah, that kind of thing. So that was 51. So after the defeat of the UGCC by Nkrumah in 51, the party then collapses, And Busia then takes the lead of setting up the GCP, Ghana Congress Party, along with Danquah and some disaffected members of the CPP. Then comes the 1954 elections. And out of 104 seats, the GCP won only one. The CPP won 72. The GCP won only one.
Wow.
And that one was won by Dr. Busia. And he won by 11 votes.
Wow.
That's how close.
So Nkrumah was an absolute dominant political force in our first 15 years.
In more ways than one. That's how come even when he was overthrown, the only way the opposition members could win elections was to outlaw his picture, outlaw his name, outlaw his party.
He was too deeply imprinted in people's minds.
The CPP would have won the 1969 elections.
Which takes me to Kotoka and the airport. Your thoughts on that? Because there's a lot of people who feel this is the right thing to do. I think there was a survey, I don't know, but a lot of people believe that the name should go.
Oh, definitely. I mean, CPP, what else? The CPP has always been that position. But it reminds me of my own childhood during the coup, and we actually taught a song by, I don't know, maybe Ghana Education Service about Kotoka. Lieutenant Governor Kotoka, rest in peace. This was after he was assassinated. But I remember us singing it in private. But no, it's the right decision. It's the right decision that the government finally made. The CPP had always advocated that. Some people said that it should be named after Kwame Nkrumah. Personally, I wasn't even in favor of it. I think Nkrumah is, to a large extent, synonymous with Ghana, and he doesn't really need an airport named after him. He's a global phenomenon. So
the Accra International Airport is okay.
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that.
Some people think that history has many dimensions, and we should live with Kotoka's name. It's part of our history. Even though he may not have supported his overthrow, his name being there reminds people of an important part of our history, which people will miss. So people like Kweku Azan write that. Is that we shouldn't oversimplify things. The fact that his overthrow of Nkrumah may, on hindsight, be seen to be unpopular does not mean that the name celebrates him. If you name something after somebody, it's not a celebration, it's a commemoration of an era. So like his name, Kotoka, there, is not because we think Kotoka is the best person in the world, but it reminds us of where he was shot and the fact that at a time in our history, some people felt Nkrumah had to go and Kotoka led that charge.
That's the mess we are in now. But the point is that I completely agree with the idea that the airport had to be named, but we have not expunged him from our history books. That's something that happens in other countries where individuals are completely taken out of history books. Kotoka is still in our history books. Everybody knows that. It's just that symbolism also counts in promoting nationalism and patriotism. And what a particular symbol stands for is critical. You understand? It's critical. So I have no problem.
I'll leave it there. Doc, thank you. Happy independence, and may Ghana get to where we all hope it gets to.
And the same to you, my brother. And let me use the Ghana expression, Wogbejeke. Folks don't know that. Wogbejeke has two meanings.
We've come from a long way, and we have a long way to go.
So Wogbejeke, happy Independence Day.
Amazing stuff. Thanks for watching. We've been discussing Ghana's history through the lens of two big figures. I started off with an interview around the life of JB Danquah with the author of a new book, The Doy and Berima, PSC Ochidakwe, and of course, Dr. Nimoy Thompson. Always a pleasure talking to him, an economist and chairman of NDPC. Happy Independence Day. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.